Hello and welcome to Cloud Learner's Journey Part 9 of Azure Administrator Associate Real Exam Questions and Answers with explanation and references which you can find in the description. So let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our Cloud Learner's Journey YouTube channel to help you pass the AZ-104 exam and become an Azure Administrator Associate. Question 1. You have an Azure subscription that contains the storage account shown in the following table. Here we have the columns name, Azure Active Directory, authentication, contents. Storage 1, Azure Active Directory authentication is enabled and the content is a blob container named container1 that has a public access level of no public access. And the storage 2, Azure Active Directory authentication is enabled and the contents is a file shared named share1. You plan to use AZ copy to copy a blob from container1 directly to share1. You need to identify which authentication method to use when you use AZ copy. What should you identify for each account? And here we see the methods auth, anonymous, a storage account access key, a shared access token. And in the answer area for storage 1, the method is a shared access signature SAS token. You can provide authorization credentials by using Azure Active Directory or by using a shared access signature token. And for the storage 2, the method is shared access signature token. For file storage, you can only use SAS. Next, question number 2. You have an Azure subscription named Subscription 1. Subscription 1 contains a resource group named RG1. RG1 contains resources that were deployed by using templates. You need to view the date and time when the resources were created in RG1. Here the solution is, from the subscriptions plate, you select the subscription and then click programmatic deployment. Does this meet the goal? And the options are A, yes, B, no. And the correct option is B, no. From the RG1 plate, click deployments. You see a history of deployment for the resource group. Next, question number 3. You have an Azure subscription named Subscription 1 that contains the quota shown in the following table. We have the columns quota, location, usage. Standard BS family vCPUs is in West US location and the usage is 0 of 20. Standard T family vCPUs, West US location, usage 0 of 20. And the total regional vCPUs, West US location, usage 0 of 20. You deploy virtual machines to subscription 1 as shown in the following table. Columns has name, size, vCPUs, location, status. VM1 is in size standard _ B2MS with 2 vCPUs in West US location, status is running. VM2 is in size standard _ B16MS with 16 vCPUs in West US location, status is stopped deallocated. You plan to deploy the virtual machines shown in the following table. Column names, name, size, vCPUs. VM3 with standard _ B2MS with 1 CPUs. VM4 standard _ D4S _ V3 size with 4 vCPUs. VM5 standard _ B16MS size with 16 vCPUs. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. Total regional vCPUs are 20. 2 vCPUs for VM1 and 16 vCPUs for VM2. So 18 vCPUs are already occupied, which means that only 2 vCPUs left to exceed usage limit. And in the answer area for the first statement, you can deploy VM3 to West US and the correct option is yes. Yes, we can add 1 vCPU because 2 vCPUs for VM1 and 16 vCPUs for VM2 and 1 vCPU for VM3. So total 19 vCPUs, which is not exceeded the limit. Second statement, you can deploy VM4 to West US and the correct option is no. We cannot add 4 vCPUs because it exceeds the usage limit. 2 vCPUs for VM1 and 16 vCPUs for VM2 and 4 vCPUs for VM4. So total is 22 vCPUs, which exceeds the usage limit. And third statement, you can deploy VM5 to West US and the correct option is no. We cannot add 16 vCPU because it exceeds the usage limit again. 2 vCPUs for VM1 and 16 vCPUs for VM2 and 16 vCPUs for VM5. So total is 34 vCPUs, which exceeds the usage limit. Next, question number 4. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1. VM1 was deployed by using a custom Azure Resource Manager template named arm1.json. You receive a notification that VM1 will be affected by maintenance. You need to move VM1 to a different host immediately. Here the solution is, from the overview blade, you move the virtual machine to a different subscription. Does this meet the goal? And the options are A, yes, B, no. And And the correct answer is B, no. Changing subscription won't affect the downtime. It will just change the billing. You would need to deploy the VM. After you deploy a VM, the temporary disk is lost and dynamic IP address associated with virtual network interfaces are updated. From overview, there is no option to move the VM to another hardware to skip the maintenance. Next, question number 5. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1. VM1 was deployed by using a custom Azure Resource Manager template named arm1.json. You receive a notification that VM1 will be affected by maintenance. You need to move VM1 to a different host immediately. It is the same as the previous question, but here the solution is different. The solution is from the update management plate, you click enable. And the options are A, yes, B, no. And the correct option is B, no. As we discussed in the previous question, you need to deploy the VM. Next, question number 6. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server 2016. You need to create an alert in Azure when more than 2 error events are logged into the system event log on VM1 within an hour. Here the solution is you create an event subscription on VM1. You create an alert in Azure Monitor and specify VM1 as the source. Does this meet the goal? Options are A, yes, B, no. And the correct answer is B, no. Next, question number 7. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1. VM1 was deployed by using a custom Azure Resource Manager template named arm1.json. You receive a notification that VM1 will be affected by maintenance. You need to move VM1 to a different host immediately. Here the solution is from the redeploy blade. You click redeploy. Does this meet the goal? And the options are A, yes, B, no. And the correct option is A, yes. When you redeploy a VM, it moves the VM to a new node within the Azure infrastructure and then powers it back on, retaining all your configuration options and associated resources. Next, question number 8. You have an Azure Resource Manager template named template1 that is used to deploy an Azure virtual machine. Template1 contains the following text. Here we see the type string, default values, East US, allowed values are Canada Central, East US, West Europe, West US. The variable section in template1 contains the following text. Location, West Europe. The resource section in template1 contains the following text. Type microsoft.compute/virtual machines, name variables, VM name, location, West Europe. You need to deploy the virtual machine to the West US location by using template1. What should you do? And the options are A. Modify the location in the resource section to West US. B. Select West US during the deployment. C. Modify the location in the variable section to West US. And the correct option is A. Modify the location in the resources section to West US. You can change the location in resources. To allow flexibility when deploying the template, use a parameter to specify the location for resources. Next, question number 9. You have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account named Storage1. You plan to create a blob container named Container1. You need to use customer managed key encryption for Container1. Which key should you use? And the options are A. An EC key that uses the P384 curve only. B. An EC key that uses the P521 curve only. C. An EC key that uses the P384 curve or P521 curve only. D. An RSA key with a key size of 4096 only. E. An RSA key type with a key size of 2048, 3072 or 4096 only. And the correct option is E. An RSA key type with a key size of 2048, 3072 or 4096 only. Customer managed keys rely on managed identities for Azure resources. Azure Storage Encryption supports RSA and RSA HSM keys of size 2048, 3072 and 4096. Next, question number 10. You have an Azure subscription that contains the resources shown in the following table. Storage1 with storage account type, Container1 with blob container type, Table1 with storage table type. You need to perform the tasks shown in the following table. Task 1. Create a new storage account. Task 2 with type upload and append blob to Container1. Task 3 with type create a file share in storage1. Task 4 with type add data to table 1. Which task can you perform by using the Azure Storage Explorer? And the options are A. Task 1 and Task 3 only. B. Task 1, Task 2 and Task 3 only. C. Task 1, Task 3 and Task 4 only. D. Task 2, Task 3 and Task 4 only. E. Task 1, task 2, task 3 and task 4, and the correct option is D, task 2, task 3 and task 4 only. Azure Storage Explorer doesn't have the ability to create a new storage account directly. Instead, you can use Azure Storage Explorer to connect to and manage existing storage accounts in Azure. Next, question number 11. You have an Azure subscription. The subscription contains a storage account named Storage1 that has the lifecycle management rules shown in the following table. The columns are name, blob prefix, if base were last modified more than days ago, then rule 1 with blob prefix container 1, if base were last modified for more than 3 days, then move to archive storage. Rule 2 blob prefix not applicable, if base were last modified more than 5 days, then move to cool storage. Rule 3 with blob prefix container 2, if base were last modified more than 10 days, then delete the blob. Rule 4 with blob prefix container 2, if base were last modified more than 15 days, then move to archive storage. On June 1, you store 2 blobs in storage 1 as shown in the following table. File 1 in container 1 with access tier hot, file 2 in container 2 with access tier hot. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. And in the answer area, for the first statement, on June 6th, file 1 will be stored in the cool access tier, and the correct option is no. On June 6th, file 1 will be in archive because file 1 is in container 1 and rule 1 applies 3 days after June 1. Second statement, on June 1, file 2 will be stored in the cool access tier, and the correct option is no. On June 1, file 2 will be stored in the cool access tier, and the correct option is no. On June 1, file 2 will be in hot tier because file 2 is in container 2, rule 3 and rule 4 haven't hit yet. Statement 3, on June 16, file 2 will be stored in the archive access tier, and the correct option is no. On June 16, file 2 will be deleted because rule 3 applies 10 days after June 1. Next, question number 12. You have an Azure subscription named Subscription 1. In Subscription 1, you create an Azure file share named Share1. You create a shared access signature named SAS1 as shown in the following exhibit. Here the allowed services is a file and the allowed resources types are service, container and object, and allowed permissions are read, write and list. Start date is 1st of September from 2 p.m. onwards and end date 14th of September till 2 p.m. Allowed IP address is 193.77.134.10 to 193.77.134.50 and the allowed protocols is HTTPS only. Signing key is key 1. To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. In the answer area, if on September 2, 2018, you run Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer on a computer that has an IP address of 193.77.134.1 and you use SAS1 to connect to the storage account, you will have no access. The IP address 193.77.134.1 doesn't have access on the SAS because it is not matching the SAS requirements. IP is out of range. If on September 10, 2018, you run the netuse command on a computer that has an IP address of 193.77.134.50 and you use SAS1 as the password to connect to Share1, you will have no access. The SAS token is not supported in mounting Azure file share currently. It is just supports the Azure storage account key. Next, question number 13. You have an Azure subscription that contains the file shares shown in the following table. Share1, Share2 and Share3. Share1 and Share2 are in West US location and Share3 is in East US location. You have the on-premises file shares shown in the following table. Columns name, server, path, the data 1 with server 1 and the path is D folder 1 and data 2 with server 2 and the path is E folder 2 and data 3 is in server 3 and the path is E folder 2. You create an Azure file sync group named sync1 and perform the following actions. Add Share1 as the cloud endpoint for sync1. Add data1 as a server endpoint for sync1. Register server 1 and server 2 to sync1. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. In the answer area, for the first statement, you can add Share3 as an additional cloud endpoint for sync1 and the option is no. A sync group must contain one cloud endpoint which represents a file share and one or more server endpoints. Second statement, you can add data 2 as an additional server endpoint for sync 1, and the option is yes. Data 2 is located on server 2, which is registered to sync 1. And the third statement, you can add data 3 as an additional server endpoint for sync 1, and the option is no. Data 3 is located on server 3, which is not registered to sync 1. Next, question number 14. You have an on-premises file server named Server1 that runs Windows Server 2016. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure file share. You deploy an Azure file sync storage sync service, and you create a sync group. You need to synchronize files from Server1 to Azure. Which 3 actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in correct order. Actions are: install the Azure File Sync agent on Server1, create an Azure on-premises data gateway, create a recovery services vault, register Server1, add a server endpoint, install the DFS replication server role on Server1. And the correct actions are: install the Azure File Sync agent on Server1. The Azure File Sync agent is a downloadable package that enables Windows Server to be synced with an Azure file share. Next action is register Server1. Register Windows Server with Storage Sync Service. Registering Windows Server with the Storage Sync Services establishes a trust relationship between your server or a cluster and the Storage Sync Service. And the third action is add a server endpoint. Create a sync group and a cloud endpoint. Next, question number 15. You have several Azure virtual machines on a virtual network named VNet1. You configure an Azure storage account as shown in the following exhibit. We have the exhibit allow access from selected networks, and we have the VNet with subnet 1 and the address 10.2.0.0/16 with the resource group demo RG and the subscription production subscription. And you see the further options below. Use the drop-down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic. And in the answer area for the first one, the virtual machines on the 10.2.9.0/24 subnet will have network connectivity to the file shares in the storage account, and the answer is never. 10.2.9.0/24 subnet is not whitelisted, hence there would not be no connectivity. Second answer area, Azure Backup will be able to back up the unmanaged hard disks of the virtual machines in the storage account, and the option is never. After you configure firewall and virtual network settings for your storage account, select Allow Trusted Microsoft Services to access the storage account as an exception to enable Azure Backup Services to access the network restricted storage account. Hence, it will never back up. Here we end with part 9. Thank you for watching part 9 of Azure Administrator Associate Real Exam Questions and Answers. We hope you found it informative and helpful. If you liked the video, please like, share and subscribe to our channel and comment for more related topics. We look forward to continuing the journey with you in next videos. Thank you.